The true final conflict, well, it often requires us to look past the most visible enemy and really assess the nature of the entire threat system. Right now, we're presented with two fundamentally different calculations for the Upside Down's endgame. A clear, immediate plan for a surgical, tactical strike, or the terrifying possibility that we're witnessing the prelude to the awakening of some kind of primordial mythological horror.
Exactly. And that's the core of it. We are examining the crucial strategic focus of this final confrontation. The dilemma really stems from new material confirming a definitive offensive against Vecna, while at the same time, all these subtle, persistent clues suggest the emergence of a far greater, draconic power.
So the question becomes, should the heroes, and by extension our analysis, focus their entire strategy on neutralizing Vecna as the source of the nightmare, or is he merely the most highly placed general whose defeat just triggers the arrival of the ultimate true final villain?
And that's our split. I contend that this intensely focused strategy risks missing the established hierarchy of threats and the structural nature of the Upside Down's power. It suggests Vecna is powerful, yes, but ultimately a subordinate.
And I maintain that the direct, centralized push against Vecna, leveraging these newly confirmed strengths, is the only strategically responsible and frankly necessary path to ending this immediate crisis.
Okay, let me hear it.
So, my core thesis centers on efficacy and just the immediacy of action here. I mean, Joyce's documented strategy for a decisive offensive against Vecna, it's not just some, emotional reaction. It is, I think, the most logical and narratively impactful path toward getting a resolution. Critically, it's supported by this massive, confirmed power spike that we've seen from Will. The footage makes the plan explicit. Will, whose innate powers have just dramatically increased, will use his established connection to the hive mind to deliver a, quote, concentrated mental strike directly at Vecna. The strategic genius of this is in targeting the nexus. Joyce lays out the goal perfectly. One blow would, quote, take him out, ends him, ends his army, ends this nightmare. This isn't a partial victory. It's the promise of a total systemic collapse. It validates Vecna as the central processing unit of the entire upside-down infrastructure as we currently know it. Removing him is a sound maneuver within the known rules, aiming for a domino effect that terminates the threat. The immediate cessation of active horror is the goal here.
That is a compelling explanation of the tactical goal, I'll give you that. But I find Joyce's plan, however ambitious it is, to be overly optimistic in its assumption of success. While it aims to address the current crisis, critical yet subtler evidence suggests that the true supreme threat, a colossal, ancient entity, is actively forming or, hatching deep within the core of that dimension. And this makes the all-in focus on Vecna potentially very, very short-sighted.
So, you're talking about the dragon theories?
I'm talking about looking at this through the lens of structural hierarchy. The persistent fan theories, which are rooted deeply in the show's Dungeons & Dragons mythology, point toward the emergence of a multi-headed dragon creature, maybe something like Tiamat or a Thessalira. We're talking about supreme, multi-dimensional predators, and crucially, visual evidence is suggesting a massive, draconic silhouette is coalescing amid the shadows within the Upside Down. Dragons in D&D lore are not generals, they're often divine or semi-divine architects of destruction. So if the ultimate conflict involves those kinds of forces, prioritizing only Vecna, who is, fundamentally, Henry Creel, a traumatized human manipulating other kids, it means we might defeat a general while the true antagonist prepares to awaken. It's the distinction between fighting human evil and fighting, cosmic chaos.
Let's address that distinction by looking at the capabilities confirmed on our side. In the scene where the strategy is laid out, the key characters, Mike, Lucas, Erica, they show this profound confidence in Will's capabilities. They're calling him a full-fledged sorcerer, wielding this formidable power. The footage confirms an unprecedented spike in his offensive psychic abilities. It's a game changer. We have a definitive, proven weapon now, and we have an identified centralized target. To just disregard that and wait for a theoretical, mythological entity to emerge means sacrificing the immediate tactical advantage we have.
But what about the risk?
The plan leverages a known, innate power for a decisive, direct victory. To focus on the potential risk of an awakening dragon, an entity whose power isn't even manifest yet, over the immediate certainty of neutralizing the active orchestrator of the hive mind, is a profound strategic error. We solve the problem we can solve now, to save the victims who are suffering now.
I understand the allure of that, of a definitive solution driven by a new capability, but that excitement, it dangerously obscures the true strategic risk. I'm just not convinced that the confidence of a few characters outweighs the inherent peril of the method itself. Let me elaborate on the counterpoint here. Robin and Murray, who are kind of the pragmatic voices in that group, they responded to Joyce's proposal with measured, sobering concern. They specifically highlighted the inherent psychic jeopardy of re-engaging Will with the hive mind. This is more than just anxiety. It suggests a real cost calculation is missing.
Okay,
So if Vecna is merely the gatekeeper to this greater dormant entity, then the intense psychic connection required for Will's mental strike doesn't just put him at risk. It risks providing this emerging dragon entity with a massive psychic surge, or even worse, a direct path through the dimensional barrier. The tension isn't just about whether the attack works. It's about what its failure or its catastrophic consequence might unlock. We risk sacrificing Will and potentially exposing everyone if that connection, instead of eliminating the hive mind, serves as a beacon for something bigger. Doesn't that risk assessment fundamentally alter the strategic imperative?
I appreciate that distinction, and the risk to Will is clearly high. But let me give you a different perspective on the hierarchy of command. We have to be grounded in the operational reality that is causing the immediate loss of life. Vecna isn't just standing guard. He is the active predator. We have confirmation that he is actively manipulating captured children, using a meticulously crafted stage in his mind to systematically erode their will before he consumes them. The visual of Max watching Henry Creel coldly execute this predation reinforces his role as the controlling intellectual force.
He's certainly the active one, yes.
Right. So eliminating Vecna immediately stops that consumption process. If the hive mind is the operating system, Vecna is the CPU executing the program. Collapsing that CPU means the whole system crashes. It halts the immediate threat, regardless of whether some shadowy entity may or may not hatch later. To stand back and wait for a theoretical monster to emerge while dozens of children are being consumed is, well, it's morally and strategically unacceptable. The immediate crisis is solved by collapsing his infrastructure.
And I come at it from a different perspective when interpreting the ultimate nature of the villain. While Vecna's immediate actions are horrifying, the continuous thematic link to Dungeons & Dragons cosmology is not just background detail, it's a structural key. The material explicitly notes that a creature of colossal draconic power would fit perfectly with the nature of the Upside Down, being associated with forces beyond human comprehension. Vecna, for all his power, started as Henry Creel. He's human. A multi-headed dragon, Tiamat, or her equivalent, represents multi-dimensional apex predation.
But he's what's in front of him.
But if the show adheres to that hierarchy, Vecna is just a potent avatar, a mortal servant given immense power, maybe even as a deliberate buffer. So targeting Vecna might not be the definitive solution. It might be the final step in a ritual. Imagine if the immense psychic trauma of Will's strike, coupled with Vecna's demise, serves as the ultimate trigger, a burst of dimensional instability that allows his higher-level entity to break its seal. Vecna is mortal. The dragon entity is supreme. We risk fighting the wrong war, or at least fighting it at the wrong level.
That's a sophisticated framing of it, but I have to return to the practical reality of the narrative focus. We have to analyze the showrunner's own deliberate efforts to ground the audience in the imminent danger. They used a specific, highly symbolic gesture, placing a core character's Funko Pop figure on the verge of toppling over, to highlight the extreme, immediate perils faced by characters we care about. This choice anchors the dramatic tension in the attack against Vecna. The narrative machinery is focused on the decisive offensive because that's where the palpable human-scale risk is concentrated right now.
That's an interesting point about narrative framing. but I would argue that symbolic gestures can often serve as classic, deliberate narrative misdirection. The intense focus on Steve's immediate danger or the drama of the clash with Vecna could be designed to heighten the immediate emotional investment while distracting from a more fundamental truth being established in the periphery. It's a common device.
A misdirection?
I think so. The creative team has acknowledged that some fan theories are shockingly adjacent or manage to pinpoint one weird detail that is correct. This suggests that the high-profile, high-stakes events, the immediate danger, could be the emotional distractions, while the true adjacent theory about a colossal villain is being set up in the background. The complexity of this thing requires multiple perspectives. Focusing solely on the psychic confrontation means missing the conceptual shift from psycho-human horror to mythological world-ending entity.
I see the logic, but it feels like you're prioritizing a theoretical threat over a tangible one. If we follow your premise that Vecna is just the general, then Joyce's plan still holds. You take out the general to disrupt the army. The mechanism she outlines, one blow ends his army, ends this nightmare, suggests a central control structure that can be eliminated with a single action. Even if a bigger bad exists, breaking Vecna's grip is the first necessary step.
But you're assuming it is a step and not a trigger.
To elaborate on the immediacy, the strategic certainty of ending the active, agonizing suffering of the trapped children has to take precedence. To suggest abandoning the most potent, viable plan we have because of the potential future emergence of a mythological creature is effectively condemning the present victims. We cannot afford to wait. The only way to ensure the immediate cessation of the horror is to use Will's confirmed ability to strike at the Vecna nexus point. The risk of the dragon awakening is secondary to the certainty of the current victim's fate if we hesitate.
And I'm just not convinced by that line of reasoning, because it treats the Upside Down as a purely centralized system run on human logic. It ignores that chaotic dimensions, like those represented by Tiamat, are often structured with layers of subservience. The supreme entity is the sovereign. Vecna is the powerful administrator who's been allowed to centralize the military power. Striking the general doesn't kill the sovereign. Joyce's plan is overly optimistic precisely because it assumes a finality that might not be there. If Vecna's psychic death is what breaches the final barrier, then the immediate tactical success will have been nothing more than a tragic, short-lived distraction. It paves the way for something that truly is beyond human comprehension.
So, to summarize my position, the strategy is clear and it's desperately necessary. We must use the newly confirmed massive strength of Will's innate psychic powers to deliver a decisive strike against Vecna. He is the established, active source of the nightmare, and eliminating him guarantees the immediate collapse of the hive mind's operational structure. Any potential, slumbering, mythological threat has to be dealt with after the most immediate and actively consuming enemy is neutralized.
And I maintain that the strategy, while bold, ignores significant textual and symbolic clues that suggest the true source of the nightmare lies beyond Henry Creel. Joyce's plan carries inherent psychic jeopardy, which Robin and Murray rightly highlighted. And if the Upside Down adheres to a D&D cosmology, focusing solely on Vecna may not end the overarching nightmare, but rather trigger the full emergence of the colossal, dragon-like entity. This approach, while maybe yielding immediate satisfaction, fundamentally fails to address the deep structural nature of the threat.
The source material offers compelling evidence for two radically different ends to this conflict: a dramatic tactical victory driven by human psychic power,
Or a terrifying mythological awakening that transcends human understanding.
I suppose the true value lies in holding both possibilities in mind as the final confrontation approaches.
Recognizing that sometimes the greatest threat is the one you are too busy eliminating the lesser antagonist to see clearly.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in the next video.